Still absolutely beaming off the result last time out in this F1 24 career mode, but this is episode 60 today for the Imola GP. Last time, though, at Miami, we had an incredibly chaotic sprint race to start off things with a crash late on for the Ferrari and a side-by-side between myself and my former Formula 2 teammate, Ollie Behrman, in the high-tech with a bit of a photo finish, per se, through the final corner. But in the full Grand Prix, that is where the magic happened. That is where a 5,000 IQ strategy play happened. And that is why we come into this episode leading the Drivers' World Championship. Second place in the Constructors. It doesn't mean problems have been solved. It doesn't mean we are now, well on the way to fighting for a championship. That was, like I said, a really great strategy call. It was a strategy call I feel like, when the opportunity arises, we have to be getting right every single time in a season like this where, yes, the Toyota, it actually feels probably the best ever for me for a while in career mode cars. Certainly feels so much better than the Mercedes we were driving last season, but the actual performance of the car is lacking. The downforce isn't there, but the balance of the car, the tires as well, with the new Michelins we've got this season, is great. So it means I can push, but just where the limit is, of where the car won't take me any further, I think it's a bit lower than we've maybe had in previous seasons. And unfortunately, we can't push it any further right now because we don't have the recognition to buy the remaining upgrades. I mean, I've looked at my contract. Is there a way to review it? I don't know. Has anyone ever tried the review contract mid-season? Does it help? Let me know in the comments below. And unfortunately, not to my knowledge, there's no mod either to mod the recognition. Annoyingly, you're always going to get stuck in this pattern right now where eventually, because of the recognition levels of other AI drivers and the way they are with teams, you will basically fall back into a default R&D structure that you maybe were in the first few seasons. Because if you look at this R&D chart, it's Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes, Aston Martin, Red Bull. That's pretty much the pecking order that was there last season, if you kind of remember. Thereabout. Obviously, last season, some flashes, certain races, you had BMW right up there. Toyota were up there. Even Audi earlier in Season 3 and high-tech in many different races where straight-line speed was an advantage. The lower, quote-unquote, lower teams were making that step up, and we've already seen that this season, like in Jeddah or last episode in Miami. But that's kind of where the limit is. We're hoping for those one-off races where something happens, something clicks, whether it's the circuit type or a certain setup or a situation like Miami where it's raining, to make that call and actually get there. But when it's just a bone-dry bog standard race, it may be harder, and obviously that's just down to the RNG gods when we load into every single career race. So we're going to see. I mean, always going to try my hardest to see what we can do. But at least saying all that, no matter what, this Toyota certainly has been a lot nicer to drive than the Mercedes, as I said. So that's a bonus that we can just take solace in, or I can take solace in at least, as we go into qualifying now for the Imola Grand Prix.
Welcome along, everybody, to Imola, just down the road from Ferrari HQ, and they know a thing or two about pace, and pace today is king. It's qualifying day, and it's great to have you with us.
This place last season was a real firecracker in the race. I remember, very close battles with Verstappen, and to be fair, last season there was that amazing call from Lewis Hamilton to not come into the pits, and he won the race, his first race for Red Bull Ford. So this place has been known to throw up some surprises and some opportunities to try something different on strategy, but at the moment the forecast is for an all dry race weekend, and if it is all plain sailing, no safety car, red flag, maybe with these Michelins, I think compared to last season and even season 2, I think this will be a nailed on one stop, whereas in the past it has looked like a 2-stop is just as fast as long as you get in some clean air. But pounding round the laps for our second flyer, and we did go a little bit quicker, marginally quicker, but just couldn't find any more pace in the car. And not to my surprise, and not as much as my teammate Yuki Tsunoda, who continues his fine form, at least in over one lap in qualifying, because in Miami, obviously, he qualified very well for the full Grand Prix. In the end, we went on to win the race and he fell away. But over one lap, it seems Yuki is finding his form from last season. Big disappointment for Lewis Hamilton, who's way down the order, whereas his teammate Max Verstappen is on pole position. Mercedes genuinely looking looking quick again with Russell up there in 3rd place, Ricciardo in 10th, Aston Martin, Ferrari in the middle. Certainly seems like going for this episode, we're seeing more similarities to the actual R&D chart pecking order. So whether that means it's going to be a tough old race, let's see. I mean, Yuki P4, let's see what he can do as we go to the grid.
Welcome once again to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari. The clue's in the name. This is very much Ferrari home turf, and the locals will be out in force today to support their team in what we hope will be a magnificent spectacle of motorsport. On then to the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. One lap of Imola, anti-clockwise of course, unlike most Formula One circuits, will take our drivers round 3.1 miles of track. 19 turns, 9 right-handers and 10 to the left. Drivers will need to be precise at the hairpin at turn 7, given the subsequent uphill section. Without a good exit from that corner, they'll lose a lot of time on that stretch. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Russell, Tsunoda, Leclerc, Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Perez, and RB, Ricciardo, Stroll, Ocon, Oscar Piastri, Hülkenberg, Albon, Behrman, Joe, Sargent, Vesti, and Lewis Hamilton rounds off the grid. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. And alongside me today is a man who needs no introduction, but I'll try anyway. It's Ant Davidson. Let's look at their season, and particularly against their teammate. Fair to say, they've got the better of them more often than not. Look, we know it's not where you start, it's where you finish. But let's talk about the start now. What's there to help the drivers get away well?
Big pressure at the start of the race, Crofty, for all of them up and down the grid, no matter where you are. But the drivers these days, they practice, practice and practice. They have rigs with them at the circuit where they can sit down with the actual steering wheel from the real car, and they've got lights that they react to. The clutch paddle is tailored around the driver's hands, around their fingers, so they can have optimum position before they start. So there's so much thought and effort that goes into getting these cars off the line.
It is overcast here around Imola, but unfortunately there is no rain on the way. I think this is the first season really where every race you will hear me actually pretty joyous if there is a sign of rain. Usually not a fan of it on the F1 games in general, just because I definitely don't perform as well. But certainly in this car, in this Toyota, Miami's buoyed me for some precipitation to come anytime, just to make use on maybe jumping people with strategy. But here it's going to just be an overcast, dry race. I hope that's not going to be a sign of the mood in the air by the end at the checkered flag. In terms of the sky colours grey, as we line up in P9, and I'm hoping we can move forwards rather than just being stuck here or going backwards. Tsunoda's ahead in P4. That gives me a bit of confidence here, but let's see what happens. It's going to be a pretty bog standard one stop though, I feel, as we go to 5 red lights to the Imola Grand Prix. Lights out and away we go. The entire right hand side of the grid gets a real slow getaway, but we actually don't get off the line too well either. Deploying battery down into turn 2, but we've been mugged off by Stroll and Esteban Ocon, having to re-overtake the Canadian driver through the next complex of corners. Little bit hairy as we make a little bit of contact with Stroll. I thought I had already overtaken him, but we have to actually still race him a little bit through the next corner and then finish off the move for P11. But we're down 2 positions then. Ricciardo, Ocon, quick starters getting me off the line. So far we've been a very good starter in this Toyota, so maybe we're overdue one bad start at least. Tsunoda's had an okay one, but already maybe feeling the pressure ahead of me as we're just trying to maybe get past these 2 cars to get back into 9th place. Ocon might go for a move on Ricciardo, but we're going to catch him napping a little bit. He's too busy watching the Mercedes, leaves the door open on the outside, and we get up into P10. But you can see how already, 4 races in, the season is evolving, because myself and Ocon, we're fighting for P1 and 2 P2 in Jeddah in the opening race, and now things are settling in, you know. Oh, big puff of smoke. Big puff of smoke. I think that's Tsunoda. Tsunoda with a big lock up there, and the beautiful F1 24 update giving us a smoke screen as it's Leclerc going round the outside of Russell. A fantastic move through the double left-hander. I mean, it's such a tight complex in that Sector 3, so that's very impressive by the Ferrari man. On home soil, of course, one of 2 Italian Grand Prix we've got in the season. Leclerc now in clean air to chase after Lando Norris in second place, whilst Verstappen enjoys a lead with a bit of a gap as it's a ferocious fight ahead. Perez, Sainz side by side. Tsunoda remains then in P6 even after that lockup as we now try and get the move done on Ricciardo, but Ricciardo is very stern with his defence, and I'm getting the sense the fighting in this race is going to just generally be a lot harder. Our car doesn't seem to be lightning quick here. Tsunoda's hanging on for dear life, and I'm struggling to make convincing overtakes as Alonso flies past Russell. So after a really great qualifying, Russell is falling backwards. The race pace in the Silver Arrow not there. I've heard that before as we now chase after and try to attack his teammate. Ricciardo gives us no room on the inside. Of course, he doesn't have to. He's defending for his life, probably facing the same issues Russell is, to be fair. And I'm sensing that once we get past Ricciardo, maybe life might be a bit easier for us. But right now, to be fair to him, he's doing a very good job at defending. And to be fair, maybe he's just defending that a little bit harder, because technically, obviously I took it, well, not technically, I did take his race. See, he was going to get dropped by Toyota anyway from last season. You know, we got that email call that he was going to get transferred away anyway, but we took the outgoing Ricciardo seat there, so maybe he's just a little bit salty about that potentially, but he was already on the way out, and I feel like eventually it's going to be a losing battle, because eventually I feel we will have the overwhelming pace. But right now he is doing, I've got to give it to him, a good job defending. But we're saving battery on purpose for this main straight now, because I definitely could have maybe tried a bit harder into the chicane, but I'd rather just get this done on the main straight, because you just never know with that massive sausage curb on that chicane in Sector 3. So here we are now with DRS also, of course, aided, using plenty of battery. Ricciardo doesn't give us space on the right-hand side, which would be the general place to make the overtake at that early point in the straight. Instead, we have to wait for the actual turn 2 corner, left, right, and on the outside of the next right-hander, we get the move. We're up into P9, and now it's a case of just trying to defend a little bit and then chasing after, locking in the next car, which is now, unfortunately, Yuki Tsunoda. He's lost 2 positions to Perez and to Sainz, who are now chasing after George Russell. And speaking of chasing after, Charles Leclerc has chased after Lando Norris. Leclerc, the reigning champion for the first time on home soil. He's in a Ferrari with number 1 on the car, and he's looking in some fine form. You know, he won the Miami Sprint, but he's yet to win a full Grand Prix yet. And remember last season, it took him absolutely ages to win a race, but he was just consistent, and that's what got him in the championship fight last season with us and Verstappen. And it seems like he's trying to do that again. You know, he had a bit of a slow start to the season in Jeddah, but now up to P2, he's finding a bit of a groove in the season again. Leclerc is definitely one of the AI drivers in this career save that has been heating up in recent seasons for sure, as we overtake Tsunoda with ease, because there's no point him fighting me. I think he knows, and I know, that I am quicker at this stage now. As the tyre wear kicks in, you can just tell Tsunoda's losing some pace, and it's the same with Russell, even more so. I mean, we knew that last season being his teammate, but we're practically pushing him through the chicane. So this is quite nice for me, to be honest, because after being disappointed at seeing Russell in 3rd and we're down in P9 from qualifying, it's great vindication to know just how rubbish the Mercedes still is in race pace terms. You know, doesn't matter where they are on the R&D chart, doesn't matter where they qualify. Russell comes in for an early pit stop. It's a very early one, because I think his tyres are shot. That's just how poor the Mercedes is in race pace. That is the car I was dealing with last season. Now you're really seeing it, because this Toyota is technically worse, but so much better in the races than that Silver Arrow. And that's what I was trying to fight Leclerc and Verstappen with last season. So you can see how good of a job we maybe did last season to still be in the fight with that Silver Arrow, that diva of a car. Whereas the Toyota, far from it. Very nice, very stable. Hasn't surprised me really that much in the first 4 rounds here, as we now go for a move on Checo Perez and get the McLaren there. So, as I've said before, this Toyota seems very kind on its tyres, because we're showing really great pace. We're overtaking cars that were clearly quicker in the first laps, but now the tyre weight's kicking in. I'm just gaining time, which definitely wasn't the case last season, or even really ever on this game with the McLaren, in season 2, for example. But this Toyota and the combination of the Michelin tyres that I'm really loving, the more durable tyres, it's really working for us as a formula, I would say. So yeah, really enjoying this vibe at the moment as we're into P1 now, as everyone has made their first stop. But I reckon if we continue on, we could just give ourselves a nice little delta difference on the hard compounded tyre. Ollie Behrman thinks the same thing then. I mean, former teammates thinking alike there, as he obviously wants to try and perform in some cleaner air in the high-tech GP car. Verstappen third now, having led the race. Leclerc gets out ahead of Lando, and Lando 1.4 behind is the Audi has to race Alonso. We haven't seen too much of Audi, to be honest, in a while in this series. They've been a massive letdown in this career mode in terms of R&D performance, and a big part of that, I feel, is because of driver transfers being absolutely chalked in this game. I feel like if they have better drivers driving for them, they would eventually be getting better R&D upgrades on their car. But alas, that is what we've got with the game, as we now watch on what's happening. Verstappen catching up to Behrman. This is deja vu. Remember last season, Verstappen got held up by the high-techs, and that's how he lost the race win around here in season 3. And in season 4, it doesn't matter about the high-techs, because his own engine is going to give up on him, and that's how he's going to lose the race win potentially here. As that's just brilliant camera work there by F124. Verstappen's retired. His engine has blown up for the second time in only 4 races this season. He is going to be so pissed off in the cockpit, as Leclerc now is on for the net race lead then, with the fast lap of the Grand Prix. Are all the cards falling for a lovely win on Italian soil for the Ferrari with number 1 in its car? That'd be pretty awesome. As we come into the pits now, I was kind of hoping low-key for some sort of VSC, a safety car maybe, because of Verstappen retiring, but no, it's now time to come in. We've gone very long on the mediums, but it's been a very decent stint, I gotta say. We will probably fall behind, like for example, I think we'll fall back behind Perez, who we just overtook before he came in, but that's fine, because like I said, we've got that delta difference now. We've talked a lot about that in real life, about teams loving to offset strategies just to give themselves a really fresh tyre at the end of the race, for example. That's exactly what we've done here, as we come out just behind Russell. So we have another chance to overtake Russell. Obviously, when we overtook him last time, he just peeled straight into the pits, as Carlos Sainz setting a fast lap of the Grand Prix. So clearly the Ferrari car itself is looking pretty damn quick around here. So Sainz may be trying to make it a double Ferrari podium. In fact, I think it already is a double Ferrari podium, as we get overtaken by the McLaren of Perez. I spoke about him actually jumping us in the pits again, but to my surprise, I came out ahead of him. But my hard tyres were quite cold, and we have seen already this season, it takes a couple of laps for the hard tyre to rubber in. I mean, it happened before anyway, but with these Michelins, it definitely seems the case. It takes a couple, and then once it switches on, at least for me, it was really great. If you remember in Jeddah, when we were flying with those purple laps, we were trying to chase down. What? Russell comes in. That's how, well, there you go, ladies and gents. That's how chalked the Mercedes is in this career save. The Silver Arrow, the only car to be doing a 2-stop in this race. I can't believe it. In the new era of durable Michelin tyres, the Mercedes is still doing a 2-stop versus a 1. Brilliant, lovely. Well, that's exactly why I left us out. We now try and attack Sergio Perez, and to be fair to him, even though my hard tyres are switched on, we've set a purple, that McLaren is actually putting up a pretty damn good fight. I think because this is maybe the last position we're both fighting for. There's a massive gap to Alonso and Sainz, who are close together. They're fighting for the last podium spot, and then it's Leclerc versus Lando for the P1 and P2 fight. So I think this 5 and 6 fight is it for the rest of the race, for the last 10 laps of this race, between myself and Perez, and Mark giving me the hurry up to overtake him by lap 27 to then give ourselves a bit of a cushion in the last couple of laps to relax as we now try and go down the inside to make this move. Perez turns into us. What was that? What was that, fella? I was there on the inside. I was well ahead. I was actually ahead at the apex for a moment there, and Perez just decided to turn into us. We've now got underfloor damage, which is not going to be ideal, but we've got the bit between our teeth. We're overusing the battery a bit, to be honest here, to try and get this move, because I'm just now a bit angry in the cockpit. The red mist is a great, beautiful injection sometimes of some much-needed pace when you get into that zone. But this is the replay then. We got on the inside. We're ahead. We're ahead at the apex. Even from that angle, you can see we're ahead. And Perez just decided to turn in like we weren't even there, basically. And I'm sure the onboard now from him will actually show that, as there we go on the inside. It is tight, but we are there. Like we're very much there. He can't just ignore the fact we've gone for a late lunge, and we are actually ahead of him as we go into the apex. And just then, right there, he started to turn in like we're not even there. And of course we are, and you can see the moment where his left tyre just drives straight into our underfloor. And I've got nowhere to go, obviously. I can't go any more left onto the grass. So we've got underfloor damage from that, but we have got the move on him. I just hope we can actually have enough pace to just break DRS so we can have a bit of breathing room, as there is a lack of breathing room for Leclerc, as the McLaren of Lando Norris powers past with DRS to get into P1 of this race. It's game on, so it's not going to be a walk in the park for Ferrari, as they do look quick, but others are competitive, as Sainz has to re-overtake Alonso for third place. Those two have been swapping, and now it looks like maybe Lando and Leclerc might be caught in a swapping battle, as we now watch Oscar Piastri in the Haas Cadillac, remember, on the outside. He gets Perez. He's up into P6. That's good for us. Gives us breathing room if Piastri and Perez are fighting. And then there's a great four-car scrap between Ocon, Stroll, our teammate Tsunoda, and Behrman for the last 2 points-paying positions, as we see another swap of position for the race leaders. Leclerc into first place again, but Lando and Leclerc join to the hip pretty much in this race, and the same for the two fellow compatriots. Very nice. Spaniard v Spaniard for third place. Alonso back into the podium spot, as Perez again has actually got ahead of Piastri then at this point, but Piastri re-overtakes him, and that clip pretty much could have been a copycat of the previous one. And this is going to be a similar move for Lando as the one that Leclerc made on the outside. So Lando's overtaken on the inside, outside. It doesn't matter. It's just going to swap round. This is almost, well, I would say the beauty, but also the weirdness about Imola on the F1 game, especially on F1 24, is the DRS is so unbelievably powerful and so effective that as long as you just don't lose too much time in sectors 2 and 3, you can repass, as Leclerc gets back into the lead on the second last lap of the Grand Prix. But is that the place to be as they go on towards the last lap? Sainz is in third. He's managed to hold off Alonso on that previous lap, though, so Sainz has done well. Can Leclerc emulate his teammate and hold off the chasing car? Lando Norris in the McLaren Chrome with DRS open on the outside, touches the grass as a bit of dust is kicked up, and he drifts it through on the outside to get into first place. The British driver has done it on the last lap, and that may be the nail in the coffin. But look at that, in the other opposite fight, the other Ferrari, Sainz, does amazingly to defend Alonso. So Sainz is able to keep his Ferrari ahead. Leclerc just couldn't fight the McLaren, and the McLaren is just very effective, it seems, with his DRS, because Piastri trying his best, but unfortunately Perez will get back up into P6 on the last lap, and Piastri in the Haas Cadillac will have to settle for P7. Tsunoda will have to settle for 1 point, P10, and I'm going to have to settle for P5, although to be fair, basing off the start of this race, P5 feels pretty great, because, you know, I think that's basically where the car was in all of this, if you really deep it. As, oh my god! Oh my god, oh my god. How have we not stuffed it into the wall? My life has flashed before my eyes there, ladies and gents. That could have been an absolute disaster class as Lando Norris wins the Imola Grand Prix ahead of Leclerc. Only half a second between them, but the story of the last lap might just be myself on the last lap. Very worn tyres now, actually, on the hards, even with the DRS Delta and maybe the underfloor damage playing into it. Well, that certainly woke me up on the last lap because I didn't have a lot to do for the last 7 or 8 laps, so I'm not going to lie. Maybe I was on a little bit of autopilot, just going through the motions, getting to the end of the race, solidifying the P5. It's a great P5 considering the pace of the car and what happened today, but it nearly could have been a DNF because let's look at a replay of that. Slow-mo, so I think the rear end was already stepping out a little bit here and I was fully on autopilot and I just was on power way too early here. The car goes, I actually reacted very quickly to go opposite lock. We lock both front tyres and that slows us down and oh my god, when you slow it down, it is ridiculous how close our front was from hitting that Michelin board wall on the left-hand side. Oh, my days. That is so, so close. We are one lucky bugger to still be in P5 after
And
that.
here he comes. It's all go, go, go for Lando Norris as he takes the checkered flag and wins.
Well, another race victory today. You could clearly see they're driving out there with very little pressure. You know they have the performance. They know they've got the car under them as well. And this has done no harm, of course, for their championship chances.
Well, Leclerc is having another season like he was last time out. Yet to win in this season, but he's still there or thereabouts in 3rd place. But Lando Norris takes the lead of the championship. Quite nice, actually, after 4 seasons. Myself and Lando, former teammates, here 1 and 2 in the championship, still swapping a couple of standing positions. It could have been very different, though, if it wasn't for that engine failure for Max Verstappen. McLaren and Ferrari and Red Bull all leapfrog us. We're level on points with Red Bull, but obviously the status quo is coming into play then, and we are praying for some sort of fix on the recognition, but I don't know if it'll come. But we're just going to keep on putting in the performances that we are and trying to bump up the needle because we will get up to 55 recognition. So maybe there's a chance we can do it manually with the game mechanics. I don't know, but still a solid P5. Sketchy last lap, but I'll take it. Guys, if you have enjoyed it, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.